So, here's the truth. The next iPad Pro might look the same. It might feel the same. But what's happening under the hood and behind the scenes is far more important than it seems. Apple is laying the foundation for something massive, and the M5 iPad Pro is just the beginning. Let's start with what we know. Apple is rumored to be working on a very specific update to the iPad Pro lineup. Not a full redesign, not a foldable tablet, but something subtle and slightly strange. 2 front-facing cameras. Yes, you heard that right. Not 1, 2, and both on the front of the device. That's something we've never seen before on an iPad, according to Bloomberg's Mark Gurman. Apple's goal here is to allow perfect video calls or selfies, no matter how you're holding the iPad, portrait or landscape, instead of needing to awkwardly rotate your tablet or deal with off-angle shots during Zoom meetings. The second camera will always be ready to frame your face properly. Now, let's be honest. Was this the upgrade users were begging for? Not really. The current iPad Pro already has a landscape camera, and it's smart. It features center stage, which keeps your face centered even when you move around. So why add another lens? The answer might be less about usefulness and more about headlines. Apple knows this year's refresh doesn't come with a big visual wow factor. So this is a move, strategic, maybe unnecessary to say, look, something's new, but this camera move is just a distraction from the real story. And the real story lives in the silicon dot. At the heart of the M5 iPad Pro is a chip that will power not just this device, but the entire direction of iPads moving forward. The M5 chip is expected to be built on TSMC's N3P node, their third generation, 3nm architecture. What does that mean? In simple terms, better performance, better power efficiency, and smarter thermal management. It's more than just a refresh. It's the engine that prepares Apple for a much bigger leap. Now, some of you might be thinking, wasn't the M4 already overkill? And that's a fair point. The M4 chip is ridiculously fast for a tablet. In fact, most users probably don't even come close to maxing it out. But there's a catch. With the release of iPadOS 26, Apple is finally enabling real multitasking features that take advantage of this kind of power. Features that let creators, video editors, and professionals truly use their iPads like laptops. And so the M5 becomes essential, not because most people need it now, but because Apple needs to be ready for where the iPad is headed. You can expect the usual performance bump, maybe a 20% increase in CPU speeds, better graphics, lower battery drain during heavy workloads. Will it make a difference for basic web browsing or note-taking? Probably not. But for pro apps, Final Cut, Logic, 3D modeling tools, it could be noticeable. And for anyone buying an iPad Pro to last 3 to 5 years, the M5 is the smarter, long-term choice. Now let's talk timing. When will this thing actually launch? If Apple follows its usual rhythm, we're looking at a release sometime between October 2025 and early 2026 that fits the 17 to 18-month cycle Apple usually follows with iPads. The last major refresh was May 2024, and before that, October 2022. So this timing makes sense. No surprises here. But here's where the surprises start. While most of the conversation is around chips and cameras, the supply chain whispers tell a much deeper story. According to sources in Korea and China, both Samsung Display and LG Display have started mass-producing old panels for the M5 iPad Pro. That's a shift from last year, where Samsung handled only the 11-inch model and LG handled the 13. Now they're sharing responsibility across both sizes. Why the sudden collaboration? The answer is simple: scale and stability. Apple wants to future-proof its iPad lineup, and relying on a single supplier doesn't help. With old panels expected to roll out across more iPads, including the Mini in 2026 and the Air in 2027, Apple needs flexibility. More suppliers means more security. It also means Apple is preparing for an old future that spans every screen size and price point. But it gets even more interesting. Apple is also reportedly working with LG on something called chip-on-film or COF display technology. It sounds technical, and it is, but the effect is actually pretty cool. COF allows Apple to attach the display drivers, those tiny chips that control the pixels, closer to the edge of the screen. That means thinner bezels, more screen, less wasted space. Imagine an iPad with the same footprint, but more display. Or an iPad that feels smaller in your hand, but still gives you the same 13-inch canvas. That's what COF could do. Some sources even suggest the bezels on future iPad Pro models could rival those on Samsung's Galaxy S10 Ultra, and that's saying something. This wouldn't just be a cosmetic change. It could also lead to better efficiency and improved battery usage. Though let's be honest, Apple has kept the iPad stuck at 10 hours of battery life since 2010. So don't hold your breath for major gains here, but it's still a step forward. Now here's a key question. Will COF technology appear in the M5 model? Probably not. The M4 model already gave us a fresh chassis and slightly slimmer bezels. Apple doesn't like changing designs 2 years in a row. They usually wait. So the next big design leap will likely come after the M5. But this year's model is already being used as a test bed for Apple's new supply strategy. They're preparing for the future, even if they're not showing it yet. Speaking of specs, what else can we expect from the M5 iPad Pro? We might see RAM bumped up to 16 GB by default, especially since the M4 models already start there. This would help with multitasking, larger files, and background processes. We might also see Wi-Fi 7 support, which is great for future, especially if you plan to keep your device for several years but don't expect much else. No fun new colors. Apple seems to be sticking to silver and space black again. And while rumors of 5G modem improvements have floated around, nothing concrete has leaked just yet. At the end of the day, this is a spec refresh but a strategic one, because while everyone's looking at the chip, Apple is making moves in the background, lining up display partners, testing new bezel tech, and oh yes, quietly working on foldable iPad prototypes with up to 18.8-inch displays. That's bigger than a 16-inch MacBook Pro when unfolded. We'll talk about that in section 2. But for now, understand this: the M5 iPad Pro is not the revolution, it's the transition. It's the bridge between what we have now and what's coming next. It's not flashy, it's not bold, but it's smart, quietly preparing Apple's tablet lineup for a decade of change, and that's why you shouldn't ignore it.